What's up, guys? This is Carter Thomas with Coin Mastery TV. Make sure you go and you sign up for the webinar tomorrow night. It's going to be a live webinar. Go to coinmastery.com/legacy. I think you're going to see some really interesting information being shared. I know Charlie Shrem is going to be on that webinar. If you don't know who he is, if you haven't seen Banking on Bitcoin on Netflix, go check him out. One of the early Bitcoin personalities. We're also potentially going to get somebody from the original Ethereum team. I think you'll learn a lot. I think that there's a lot to be said for learning from people that have been around for a very long time. So make sure you're signed up if you haven't already. coinmastery.com/legacy, and I will see you there. Welcome back, everybody. Man, this Bitcoin is just it's just like a Terminator. The thing just does not stop. And what we're going to talk about today is what's a little bit about Bitcoin and the price ceilings of Bitcoin. We're going to talk about what's going on a little bit with altcoins, but I want to spend a majority of this video and audio podcast, if you're listening, talking about what I would consider phase 2 of crypto. And what phase 2 of crypto is as things get more competitive. If for anybody who's new to this channel, and many of you may not know this to begin with, I've been through approximately 4 of these, what I would consider emerging market gold rushes, right? First one was with Google, with SEO and all that. Second one was with apps. Third one was with Amazon. Fourth one is with crypto. And they all go in the same phases, right? And maybe you've seen this curve with like early adopters and all that stuff. But for you guys, in terms of making money, in terms of crushing the opportunities, like the easy money, the big easy money, I think we're coming to the tail end of phase 1 and we're getting into phase 2. Now, the good news is the amount of money to be made is way, way, way bigger, right? I wouldn't say bad news. The other news is that you need to adapt your strategy, which is what we're going to address. And I want to give you a bit of a top level 3-part system that I've used that works in finance. It's always worked in finance. Give you some examples and give you some tactics. By the end of this, you can leave and you'll have a better idea of how you can walk into the coming months on offense. Right? You want to be defensive about holding your positions, but you want to be on offense about how to find new opportunities. And that's what we're going to talk a lot more about, getting that aggressive mindset without necessarily liquidating your assets or capitalizing yourself or anything like that. Yesterday, we were looking at Bitcoin and we were looking specifically at the channel style analysis. And depending on who you look at, which charts you look at, they're gonna chart this differently. Some might not put it right at the end of this wick. They might put it right here at the end of the candle. I'm looking at the 1 day. I'm also looking at Coinbase. Many people might look at Bitfinex or Bitstamp and not Coinbase, but it's not going to be that different. So depending on where they put the channels, some charts may be more parallel. Some charts may be more of an ascending wedge like this one. So just keep that in mind if you see anything else. There's no be-all, end-all. It just really depends on what you're looking at. However, what's really important and what you should care about is up here at the top. When you zoom in, I'm just going to make sure this is on auto so that it automatically adjusts when I zoom. I'm going to scroll in here. And you can see that as we're looking at this day, we are getting to the top of this channel. Now, because I'm not a technical trader, I cannot give you an exact price the way that other technical traders might be able to, but it's going to be in the general vicinity of the same area. And this could go sideways and then come back up. It could dip and then go back up. Or on this mini bull run that we're happening, it could just go straight to it. The key to these channel levels is that if it hits this and if it goes through, it's a very good sign of it going parabolic. If it hits this and it bounces back, that's when you're going to start to look at retracements. You're going to start to look at Fibonacci type stuff. You're going to look at different trend lengths. You're going to start to maybe zoom in to something like the 4 hour so that you can get a better sense of the shorter term window. But these are the lines that will really help you in situations like this. My personal opinion, looking at the technical and also looking at the macro forces behind all this, I think that the fork is going to continue to drive this price up for the time being. I think we may see a dip and then another spike back up right before the 2x fork and even the Bitcoin Cash fork, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I don't think that it's going to apex right before the block of the fork and then just fall off a cliff. I think that there's going to be scalps that happen right before November, 15th or 16th, or whenever the block is expected to happen for Bitcoin. As we get closer, we can look at those exact prices. But what I would encourage people to do is look at the chart yourself, potentially even get used to doing this sort of chart work yourself. Second thing is prepare for one set of dips. Realize it'll probably go back up again to an even more painful high, depending how much you own of Bitcoin or altcoins. But the real dip action, the real volatility is not going to happen until after the fork happens. And at some point, it's going to come back down. And it's going to come back down in a way that may be very good, maybe be very bad for certain people, but it's going to dip. It has to dip. This run is completely unsustainable when you scroll out. And this has nothing to do with me being bearish or bullish on Bitcoin itself. This is just me being real about what parabolic graphs look like and how they can't go on forever. So just know that there is going to be a dip that will come, and it may seem like it's not going to, but it will. And having a good idea of where we are relative to the parabolic and also how big it's going to drop, this is always a good way to do it. So keeping an eye on this, I would encourage you guys on Twitter. You can follow me, Carter Thomas, but you can also follow the people I follow. There's a lot of great technical traders that will have really good charts that you should always compare. Realize that no one ever nails it every time, but it's good to at least to get the ball rolling, get you started thinking about this. So my plan, I'm still holding tight. I'm not doing anything. I'm just waiting on the dip. That's when I'm going to buy and move accordingly. Now, what I wouldn't say majority. I would say a lot of people that I see in the community this is where they're looking, right? They're looking at the altcoins. They're looking at these random coins that are getting spiked based on rumors, based on news, based on speculation. Some of it may be based on inherent value spikes. The fact of the matter is all of this is looking pretty dire. And I think that often that's an important thing to, first you just got to accept the fact that that is what it is. And sometimes there just isn't a whole lot you can do about what you hold inside your portfolio. There may be something you can do outside your portfolio, like going and making more money or, shutting down your computer or whatever. But sometimes if you're just in a losing position, and you still believe in the coin, you still believe in the product, it's just you go through bear markets. This is just like what it was in 2009. Or not, I should say it's not just like it, but it's got similar, there's patterns that repeat itself in terms of, hey, I know that these things are going to go big. One thing I would encourage everybody to do, which is what I mentioned on Twitter yesterday, which we'll talk about, is if you see a coin that you really believe in, yesterday I mentioned Metal, Stratus, and Verge, all of which are relatively popular coins. If you believe in it and you see a huge price drop, spend your time investigating why the price drop is happening. Okay, don't just chalk it up to, well, Bitcoin's going through the roof, so this is going down. Make sure you can verify and prove any opinion or any thesis you have about price manipulation or price change. I shouldn't say manipulation, price changes, because that is going to solidify your decision on whether or not you should hold it or whether or not you should try to exit out of your position in one way or another. I think the other thing you should do is always make sure you compare the Bitcoin. You're looking at the Bitcoin price. This is obviously, let's look at metal just because it's an obvious example right here. Bitcoin price is going down. It's getting crushed against Bitcoin. But you should also look at the US dollar price and see how that's comparing. Now, in many cases, the US dollar amount is also going down. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's the US dollar stuff isn't as bad as you might think, because the price of Bitcoin is just going up so much that many times it's really not as bloody as you think when you're not comparing it to, oh my God, well, I could have gotten 100% return. I'm down 6% against the US, which, I mean, that's not that bad in the grand scheme of things. So that can help get your mind straight so that you don't make rash decisions about this. But I do want to dig into this idea of when things are down, verifying why it's down. For example, yesterday, Verge released news about their Wrath protocol. It's a big development. And it looks like that news was relatively unexpected, for relatively speaking here. I know that there's probably some people that knew about it. But Stratus also had a big release, and Metal had a big release, but these Metal and Stratus got crushed, and Verge actually had a bit of an uptick, bigger than it is today. And I was looking at this because I'm always interested, like we talked about in this week's videos, do dev releases really impact price, right? Like that's how a lot of buying activity has traditionally, in the last couple of months, been used to create inflation or increase in price. And so now I'm wondering, does that still hold up? And so I polled everybody on Twitter, or I put up a poll, and one interesting thing was, these are just 3 ideas I had, because I said, why is this the case? Why did Strat go down? Why did Metal go down? Why did Verge go up? And the options for anybody listening was, the first is, this is the first time Verge had big news. Verge is cheaper, meaning you can buy more you can get like 100,000 shares for the same price of like 10 Metal or whatever. Verge is a superior product, or just comment with an alternative. What's some news that I don't know, or that people don't know, that may point to this? And on the poll, Verge is cheaper was the winner by a slim margin. It was actually pretty relatively spread out. But looking through the comments was really interesting. You guys, thank you so much for commenting on this and providing a lot of really good information. And when you scroll down, there's a lot of really good responses, and you can start to see consensus. You can start to get an idea of what the answer was. Some of the most popular answers were that the news was already baked into the price for Metal and Stratus. There's some other news about how Metal may have had some insiders that dumped a ton of shares. Or maybe, I shouldn't say may. It looks like that is what happened according to their lead developers on Slack, right? And so you can dig into these kind of things and really start to understand what's going on with the price. Now, it's not necessarily an exact science, but I think that this is really a good practice to get into, because you want to research your coins. You want to do a lot of really good research. You want to buy into your coins at a really good price. And then when you see the price going up or down, you want to be able to know why that's happening as best you can. You can't always know, but the more you understand why things are happening, the better you will do. And this plays into that idea of phase 2 of crypto. We are getting into an environment where you need to have a good idea, because if you don't, you're not going to know when you should hold, when you should buy, what's a good deal, what's not a good deal. If you're just looking at Bitcoin price and you're just looking at OMG every single time and being like, oh man, this is a smoking deal, 93,000 sats at 616. This is the best. And the only reason you're thinking that is because Bitcoin is just depressing that price. That doesn't give you a competitive edge. You should go and find out, is it truly the only reason? Has anything changed at OMG? Is there any different change in sentiment? Have they had any releases? Is there what's going on in Bitcoin Talk? What's going on Reddit? And dive in, right? Or Golem or Neo or OKK. I mean, any of these coins. But you will find that the more you do this, the better not only your returns get, but the less bad decisions you make, right? I mentioned that book, The Slight Edge. I've got this. I should pull this. I'm a big fan of having like stuff on your walls. This is what I look at this all day, right? It's a picture of a house on the ocean in Hawaii. It's like the spot. And then it's got that slight edge graph, right? And what that slight edge graph says is that simple decisions made consistently will eventually lead you to the promised land, and simple errors in judgment made consistently will eventually lead you to your peril. And that's true here, where the more you can build habits that help you make better decisions, small micro habits, the more you will win as these markets get more competitive and there's a lot more money to win. So that's one of the reasons why I did this, because I frankly, I had my own idea of why some of this action was happening with Stratus, Metal, and Verge, but the community is always going to be smarter than one person. I don't care who you are. Getting a group consensus will always paint a better picture and at least give you more information than you could ever get on your own as it relates to these kind of questions. So I would encourage you guys to always be thinking this way. You're looking at 10x and it's down 17.6%. Go and dive into 10x and be able to answer the question, what is driving this price downward other than just Bitcoin going way up? And if Bitcoin is going way up is the only reason, be able to prove that it is the only reason. That's it. It's just the nature of the market. So interesting stuff happening here. I don't think that there's any big takeaway specifically about these three coins, about Stratus, Metal, or Verge, other than it seems like Metal had a pretty big dump from a big holder, which does not bode well for them, unfortunately. So I think that was probably the big one, and we'll go from there. Also, the Strat had a lot of price already built in. Now, the last thing, or second to last thing, I want to mention, excuse me, is I put this up, and one thing that I have access to that I like to share with you guys is a window into market sentiment that a lot of people don't. I get a lot of responses, a lot of comments, a lot of messages, a lot of questions, and it truly changes on a daily basis about market sentiment. And I would say this week in particular, it's been, the best I can describe it, especially for altcoin holders, is on this chart, is that we are probably between capitulation and anger. What that means, for anybody listening, this is the Wall Street cheat sheet. Many of you have already seen this, the psychology of a market cycle, where it shows a huge run-up, it shows a second kind of, all right, well, hey, we're back, nothing to worry about. And it shows a steep sell-off, and then the doldrum period, and then a second rally that often leads to a next bull run big cycle. And the reason why I say capitulation and anger is because I see a lot of people that are starting to casually mention like, hey, should I sell off this? Should I sell off this? And I know that when they're asking me whether they should do it or not, chances are they're probably going to do it, at least a little bit. Right? If they have an altcoin and they're like, should I sell this off? Is Bitcoin going to run? Anytime people are asking me that, it typically means that they're probably going to do it, and they're looking for a really good reason not to, because it relieves pain to do that, and that is the reason why people do it. And then, so that's the one piece, is that what people say they're doing and what people actually do are very, very, very different in finance. That's why the market is the ultimate battleground, is because there's no big what you see is what people do, and behavioral analysis is way more important than listening to what people say they're going to do. So the capitulation, people are selling their altcoins. Even though they're talking a big game about holding, people are selling it. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that that's what's happening. And from what I see, and what you can see in the actual going Bittrex. I mean, that's what the story is. The second thing is with anger. And this is something that I think a lot of you may be observing. And this is happening a lot on Twitter, Facebook a little bit, but Facebook's kind of worthless. I think we can all agree on that. I don't think I've ever gotten anything useful off of Facebook in the last 3 months. But people are like, there's a bit of resentment. There's a bit of people getting pissed at not only the situation, but you're starting to see a little bit of lashing out at, oh, well, you told me to buy this, or you told me to buy this. And I'm not taking this personally. No one's necessary. I don't care if people blame me or blame somebody else or whatever. The point is that people are blaming other people. And this isn't a widespread thing, but often when you see a few people doing it, it's what a majority are feeling. And those people are just the few that get the attention, and people start noticing it because they're like, hey, that's actually how I really feel. But I don't want to say it myself. That's how it works. And so you're starting to see this anger. I tweeted about how I think there's going to be a huge populist revolution in 2020, but it looks like there's a bit of that happening already, right? It's like all these guys who've been trading since 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, who are like making all these killer trade calls all through this big ass rally I don't like the curse, this big rally. And now people are starting to be like, you called this and that sucked. And you called this, like, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah. And they're getting defensive. And the big news about that is that people just getting pissed. And so it goes. That's what happens in down markets. So keep an eye on this. I think that depression may set in, right? I mean, if this price just keeps going up, I think the only way depression really hits is if SegWit 2X happens, Bitcoin sells off, and then altcoins come down after that, which as this gets closer, that's really the strategic focus. The plan that you need to have is preparing for that not to totally hurt you, both financially and emotionally, for a lack of a better term. Because if Bitcoin drops down to, let's say, 4,000, if it did, and altcoins also lower against that, that's when people get really depressed, because then their money's really, it's not like, oh, I should have bought Bitcoin. It's holy I'm out of money, right? At least for now, and that's when it gets really, really weird. And then right at the max pain point, that's when it starts to go up, because that's when all the whales come in and start buying all your coins. So this is the kind of stuff that I can help you with a lot of, because I just have access to more data than many people. And it's also the kind of stuff that I've been studying for years as a marketer, right? Like emotional cycles is what I do. And also as an investor, and being smart about how you put your money in the right places. So obviously, everyone's in a unique situation. There's always going to be somebody who's in denial, somebody who's in anger, somebody who's somewhere else. It also depends on based on the coins. So that's that. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is how to get an edge in crypto. Okay, I didn't know a better way to do this, so I figured I would just put it into a PowerPoint. Because as we get into phase 2, in phase 1, the question was, well, what's the best place to put my money to get the max return? But no matter what, there's going to be a return, right? Between January, February, and September, I would say through mid-September, it was really like you could put it anywhere. The game was, where do you get the 1,000% return instead of the 100% return? But now it's getting to the point where the question is, how do I beat other people to the runs that are going to happen, that are going to lead to more revenue? And what I mean by that, just flipping back to Bitcoin, or I'm sorry, to Bittrex for a second. If you scroll up and let's look at like Grotel's coin. I don't know if I know you, I appreciate you guys helping me out with the pronunciation. I can't remember exactly what it is, but you can see that there's a huge run on GRS and there's Grotel's coin. And the way phase 2 works and the way phase 3 is really going to work is how do you get information, or how do you make a buy call as early as possible in these bull runs? That is the name of the game. And that may seem obvious, but in phase 1, in the previous part of this year, people didn't necessarily fight to get this spot, because no matter what, it was always going to go up, and you didn't have to work really hard to guarantee that you were early here. It was kind of like, well, no matter what, it went down today, but it's going to come back up. Now it's clear that to get in here requires a bit more work. So I want to talk about 3 things that you can do, or 3 ways you can approach this. I mentioned this yesterday. The first way is technical analysis. If you do not have any technical analysis skills at all, I would encourage you to at least learn the basics. I mean, you see what I do. I know the basics of technical analysis. I am not a technical trader, but it doesn't stop me from going onto free sites. You can go to babypips, BABYPIPS.com, and there's free training available there. Okay, it's completely free. They're not telling me to say that. You can go on YouTube and find tons of great resources. But by getting some semblance of technical analysis, you're putting yourself ahead of all the people that are not going to put in the effort or the work or the thought to do that. And it can give you a bit of an edge. The other way to do it is you partner with somebody who's really good at technical analysis, who can help you look at charts, and then you help them in some way, whether maybe you pay them, maybe you give them information, maybe you do whatever, help them in some new way. But technical analysis, learning how to read the charts, is one way that you can learn how to get in before some run happens. And it can be a short-term run or it can be a long-term run. But technical analysis, and this should be in everybody's bullpen. I don't care if you don't like it. I don't care if it's not natural for you. You should know the basics. You should know how to get it started. And you should seek out people that you can work with who will give you technical insights that not everybody has, right? Second thing is fundamental analysis. So what that means is, how can you research something like Grotel's coin, and how do you find these coins and go through their website and get a really, really, really good understanding of, hey, it's only trading at 1,500 sats, and I think that this thing is massively undervalued. And the way you do that is you go to the website, you read the white paper, you see who the team is, you look at their unique selling proposition, you go through the whole process, and you create criteria. Right? How is this company going to grow? How are they going to succeed? How are they going to win in a competitive market? And you do lots and lots and lots of fundamental analysis. So the second way to win in phase 2 is fundamental analysis. Another way of saying this, getting better research. If you don't like to do research, find somebody who does really good research, or who enjoys doing research, who is willing to share that with you in exchange for money or for your time or for your effort or whatever. But a majority of people will not go through 25 pages of Bitcoin talk and see really in-depth market analysis, and that can give you an edge, right? That can give you insights that other people don't have, because it's more work. The third way to do it is macro analysis. Now, I think that this is probably less of a direct short-term play, meaning I think macro analysis is going to it's going to be harder on the altcoin level to be able to accurately predict what's going to work. But what macro analysis is when you start to look at things like China unbanning or banning Bitcoin, right? Or maybe Japan doing something with Bitcoin, or you see something about the Federal Reserve or something with US regulations. You find out information that other people do not have or do not understand that can clearly impact, either the entire crypto market or a specific crypto coin. And there's two ways to get macro analysis. One is you can read the news and just be up to date, right? Speed is a big part of macro. The other is that you have to talk to people that are like implementing or know something about this change. And a lot of that happens by meeting people in person. Right? If you meet somebody who knows the lobbyist in XYZ country for the finance, whatever, and they say, hey, you know, I think the European Union is going to be pretty bullish on Growthel's coin. I don't know. I'm making this up. But that's the kind of macro analysis that you can trade on, right? That's just really good due diligence. That's not about fundamental research or fundamental analysis, which is when you go and learn about the coin. It's when you find out about macro forces, bigger institutional level forces, the Federal Reserve, governments, companies, news like that, partnerships that can drive big growth in a particular coin or in just Bitcoin in general. And the last thing I will say, I don't mean this in I mean this in a very much a matter-of-fact way. This is a competition. And I think one thing to remember in finance and in business is that it may seem like hey, we can all win in this, but unfortunately, not everybody can be early in a bull run, right? So if you're listening on the audio, I'm pointing to right at the bottom of a huge bull run, let's say in Growthel's coin. You can go to any coin and pull this up. Let's just say like Bitcoin Cash, right? Recently, there's a bit of a bull run, right? It's had a pretty tough run to begin with, but not everybody can buy or can accumulate down here. Because if everybody bought it, the price would go way up. And so that is why not everybody can win. That is why finance is a competitive game, is because there's only so much room at this price before the price starts going up. And everybody is trying to figure out these prices. Now in phase one, that wasn't really the case because it just always went up, right? Everything was always going up. Now we're in phase two. You need to start thinking about that. That's why I talk a lot about strategy and not about, shot calls and things like that, is because the strategy, learning how to think this way is what's going to make you a ton of money. How do you get an edge? How do you get in earlier than other people? And if you're looking for tactics on that, we can go through plenty of tactics, but that's the kind of stuff that, the real question, and I always say this in any business, is the things that will give you the biggest return are the things that nobody else wants to do or the things that nobody else is willing to do. And through these three things, technical analysis, fundamental analysis, macro analysis, that's all you need to ask yourself. Technical analysis, what do other people not want to do or not willing to do? Most people are not willing to draw out 45 charts to make sure that they can get the best possible conclusion. And top technical traders will do that. And that's why they can often crush it. And they're not going to share that because they need to get in earlier before everybody else gets in. Fundamental analysis. Are you willing to read 30 white papers a night? Do you want to? Maybe not. But some people are. And if they get it right, if they nail it, they're going to get in earlier. Same with macro. Are you going to go to conferences? Are you going to meet people? Are you going to hit up people on Twitter? Right? There's a lot of ways you can do it, but this is a competition. And anybody who tells you this isn't a competition going into phase two, either they just don't get it or they're deluding themselves, because there's not enough room early in the bull runs for everybody. And yes, I want everybody to succeed. And that's why I talk about strategies, because there's the awareness of this is not there. And there's a lot you can do, but this is what it's all about. This is how it's going to be good. So I think we'll wrap it up there. I think the good news of all this is that as the phases get more competitive, the amount of money is monumentally bigger. So it's harder to do one of those three things, But when you do it and you succeed at it, the rewards are bigger than anything else we've seen to date. And it is what it is. So exciting times. We're keeping an eye on Bitcoin. We're going to keep an eye on all your altcoins. If you haven't already, make sure you go and join that webinar, coinmastery.com/legacy. I'll be there. I'm excited to see what those guys have to offer. And then I will see you tomorrow. Peace out.